Good morning, everyone, and I'm going to kick it off with just a brief introduction of Brad Smith. So I'm going to step back to 2016. Bill Campbell passed away in April, and he's an individual who had a profound impact on a number of us. And my wife Diane and I were contemplating what might we do to carry forward Bill's legacy and share his, guidance with other people. And so we came up with this idea of the Campbell Trophy Summit, honoring Bill and honoring the award named after him, but bringing together some people that he was very proud to know and proud to be associated with, which were college football players. So I had this idea of the summit. We went and met with Brad Smith, who was CEO of Intuit at the time, and Brad was gracious and allowed Diane and I to meet with him. And I was about 20 seconds into my pitch, and I literally didn't have the ball out of my hand before he told me to stop. And I was like, well, that didn't really work out very well. He said, stop. And I stopped. And he just said, hey, we're all in, whatever it takes, whatever you need, you got it. And so from that day forward, we've been able to host the Campbell Trophy Summit, largely with the support of Intuit. Brad and his wife Elise here have been great supporters, and it really, I think, make a point to extend warm thanks to Brad and Elise. Other than that, I will tell you a little bit about Brad as, he's one of the truly phenomenal executives we've had here in Silicon Valley. He ran Intuit as CEO, sort of handpicked by Bill Campbell from 2008 to 2018. And I wish he had told me at the time that the stock was going to go from $25 a share to $200 a share, because we all would have been doing a little better in our 401k accounts. And so he had this essentially eightfold increase in the stock, while the same period, the NASDAQ went up like 2x. So radically outperformed, but more importantly, he set the tone in his organization for empathetic and leadership by example, and really trained the next generation of leaders of Intuit. And so they had and enjoyed and continue to enjoy this phenomenal success. In 2018, Brad decided, he's 54 years old. He'd been CEO for 11 years, had this tremendous run. But he told me it was time to write a new chapter. There's a new chapter in his book, and he had a vision around philanthropy and helping the communities in and around the state he grew up in, which was West Virginia. So he and Elise embarked on a mission to really help all these communities and help sort of an economic renaissance in West Virginia. Along that way, people really got to know Brad. He had gone to Marshall, and his family, his mom still lived near the campus. Lo and behold, they drafted him to be president of Marshall University. A really unusual assignment for someone without tremendous academic credentials and a PhD and other things. But they realized his impact and what he could do for what he'd done in the community already and what he could do for the organization. So for the last 2.5 years, Brad has served as the president of Marshall University and still does amazing things in the community on the philanthropic side. We're thrilled to have he and Elise here. They've been great benefactors of the summit. And please, let's give Brad a warm welcome here.
Thank you, Mark, for that kind introduction. Before you leave the stage, I want to ask everyone in this room, let me first set a little context. None of this would have happened without Mark Flynn. He and his wife, Diane, Michael Moe, they actually saw this vision. They do all the hard work. They work with each and every one of you like a concierge service to make sure you get here safely and all the accommodations are taken care of. He's planned an amazing summit for you. Please join me in giving a tremendous round of applause to Mark. It is amazing to be in a room with so many amazing thought leaders, change agents, and to see familiar faces. I am excited to be here. It's a privilege for me, and I am looking forward to the opportunity to celebrate you. This has become one of the must-attend events in Silicon Valley. And trust me, that is not hyperbole. Every year, we get calls about 3 months in advance saying, where do I buy a ticket? But that's what makes this place special. This event is not something you buy your way into. You have to earn your way here. That is what each and every one of you have done. And that's what makes it incredible. So today, in honor of your accomplishments and in continued pursuit of your quest for excellence, you have an incredible agenda. It's going to give you the opportunity to learn from some amazing leaders, including each other. You're going to get hands-on training, and you're going to have the opportunity to have some camaraderie and some competitive fun. It's going to be an action-packed 2-day agenda, starting with today. It's going to be equal parts inspiration and perspiration, just the way Bill Campbell would have loved it. A little bit of intensity, a little bit of grace along the way, which is fun. Now, this is the 6th year. This is my 6th time I've had the opportunity to speak with this group. And I stepped back and I thought about all the different things that I have shared over these half a dozen years. I've talked about Mark Twain and his famous quote, the 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you discover why. And I'll walk through a methodology to unpack a blueprint for how you can discover your purpose or your why. Last year, I shared the 5 greatest leadership principles I learned from Bill Campbell. He coached and mentored me for more than a dozen years. I remain a work in process, but I codified them into something I called the 5 Ps. First, you coach to someone's potential. That's the first P. The second is you get them aligned on a purpose, something that's going to matter in this world. The third is you surround them with amazing people. The fourth is you give them a playbook that's optimized to their strengths. And last but not least, you leave them in their heart with a desire to pay it forward. Those were the 5 Ps. So as I was thinking about this year, I thought, well, what in the heck am I going to talk about? A half a dozen years, I think I've shared about everything I could possibly come up with. And then it became very clear. We are navigating in an incredibly chaotic and unpredictable time. This is a period of time where it is a premium to have leaders who role model the attributes and lead through the actions that will inspire others. And I will tell you that in 2024, there's never been a more important time for leaders to rise to that occasion. There are unanticipated things happening every single day. Right now, those of you who are in businesses are trying to heal your company culture as you come out of a pandemic and you try to coax employees to return to the office, and they just don't want to do it. You also have this incredible social unrest. You have political division up to and including an assassination attempt on a former president just 2 weeks ago. You have an economy that's still sort of in malaise. On one hand, the numbers say it's great on Wall Street. Then you've got 60% of Americans trying to figure out how they're going to buy groceries because of inflation. You've got natural disasters. There's another fire raging right here in California in the last 48 hours. There's already hurricanes getting named 3 months in advance when they typically get named. Then you have things like NIL and the transfer portal for all of us living in NCAA athletics. And throw on top of that large language models and ChatGPT and Llama. And you go, whoa, this is bewildering. It's only 7 months in to 2024. And so I stepped back and I thought, what kind of leaders do we need today to navigate through this period? And I was trying to figure out, has there ever been another point in time in our country's history when it felt like this? So I began to ask others as I was preparing for this. And everyone consistently said, yeah, the 1960s. And I thought, okay, the 1960s, a lot of common characteristics happening at that time. And so I was thinking, what leaders would admire and wish was here today? Now, the first on that list, I'll be honest with you, is the namesake of this summit, Bill Campbell. But Bill Campbell wasn't leading in the 60s. He was a younger man in the 60s and playing ball. And so I thought about who was out there at this point in time as leaders. And I thought about the names that maybe come to mind for you. John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, just all kinds of incredible people. And then it hit me. Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Now you may think, what in the heck? When you say Mr. Rogers, for those who are old enough, I know the first thing you're thinking about is a soft-spoken, even-keeled child whisperer whose melodic dialect, his hand puppets, and his sing-alongs entertained children for years. But I will tell you, he is the epitome of the leader that I believe we need in this nation, in this world today. And I'll tell you why. For 4 decades at Intuit, we have sought to study the world's greatest leaders and then to transform that into a playbook that we can teach the next generation how to lead. And it has three primary principles. The first principle is, does the leader lead with a bold and clear vision? The second, do they invest the time to build a high-performance culture? And third, do they actually role model winning results? Do they deliver winning results? I will tell you, objectively speaking, Mr. Rogers did all three, and let me unpack and explain why. So first of all, leading with a bold and clear vision. Mr. Rogers had a clear vision in the 1960s and the early 70s, all the way up through the 2000s. His vision was he wanted to improve the mental and emotional well-being of children under the age of 6. Now, he wanted to do that by harnessing the most transformative technology of his time, which was television in the living room, which was a very new technology. But he did it in a bold way. He took what was happening in the environment at that time, the Vietnam War, racism, all the things that were happening, political unrest, assassinations, sort of a free love movement. And he weaved those themes into a children's show. In the first week, he had 4 episodes, because he started on a Tuesday. He actually talked about war, death, divorce, and racism for children under the age of 6. He was so incredibly effective at doing this that it got families around the television as well. And it was so impactful that in 2001, after the World Trade Centers had been attacked, the President of the United States and his administration said, we're seeing an unintended consequence. Parents are glued to CNN. They're watching the towers burn. They're watching the impact of the plane. They're watching people jump to get away from the fire. And the young kids are traumatized. What are we going to do? And someone said, call PBS and ask if Mr. Rogers will come out of retirement. And he was at stage 4 stomach cancer. He recorded a 5-minute video telling kids about the heroic efforts of everyone coming together to help those in need, and it calmed a country. That is an incredible, bold vision that he stuck to the entire time he was on this earth. Now, the second thing is, he built a high-performance organization. Now, we all talk about today, we understand the power of diversity. Diversity of experience, diversity of thought, diversity of race, gender, all those pieces. But back in the 60s, that was not something people fully appreciated and understood. But Mr. Rogers did. If you look at the characters of his hand puppets, they all had different personalities. They all complemented each other in a certain way, and they all learned from each other. He had the exact same approach when he put his cast together. If you look at them, they represented America. They represented the world. He wanted them to be representative of every kid that was watching that show. And what was amazing, it was not just who he chose to surround himself with, it was his actions. 1969, there was race and racial unrest in the South, and there were public swimming pools with all kinds of controversy because they didn't want kids of different races swimming in the pool. And so what did Mr. Rogers do? He called an audible the night of a show. He quickly rewrote the script. He invited Officer Clemens, the black police officer on his cast, to come in. He filled a plastic wading pool with water. He asked Officer Clemens to actually take his shoes off, and they sat together and put their feet in the pool. And he sent a message to the rest of the world, this is who we are. He role modeled both who he surrounded himself with and how he treated them. And that takes me to the final piece, deliver winning results. For 33 years, Mr. Rogers had the #1 rated television show on PBS. He wrote 30 books, most of them bestsellers. He had 40 honorary doctorates. He won 4 Emmys. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame for television, and he was awarded the Medal of Freedom by the United States President. That was incredible. And what he did when he received all those things is he role modeled the characteristic of Bill Campbell, kindness. Maya Angelou once said, when it's all said and done, people are not going to remember what you said. They will not remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Bill Campbell could have been anything he wanted to be in this world, and he was many things. He was a son, he was a brother, he was a husband, he was a father, he was a friend, he was an athlete, he was a coach, he was a world-class marketer that developed the Apple ad, where they actually threw the great big gauntlet and shattered the screen when he was at Apple. He became a CEO, became a chairman, and he became an icon. And he could have done anything he wanted to do in each of those roles, but the one thing he remained true to was he was kind. He was kind to everyone around him. And so now you are his namesake. You earned your way here, not only by what you accomplished on the field and what you accomplished in the classroom, but how you did it. You did it with grit, and you did it with grace. So I ask you to leave with this thought. In this world today, I hope you will be the change that you seek. I hope you will channel your inner Bill Campbell, your inner Mr. Rogers, and if you can choose to do one thing, I hope you choose to be kind. And if you ever have a down day, if you're old enough to remember, if not, just go in and look it up on YouTube. I hope you'll just hum a few phrases. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, a wonderful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? That's all we need. God bless you. I love you like brothers and sisters. I hope you have an amazing summit. Channel your inner Mr. Rogers. Thank you. Now, you're going to hear some powerful leaders today, and I think we have a chance for a couple of questions. Happy to take a question on anything. What's happening in athletics from my perspective, sitting in the seat I sit in, anything in business, and then we're going to get back on track and make sure we stay true to the rest of the agenda. Any questions from any in the audience? They don't have to be Mr. Rogers specific. I realize that demographic may not be one that everyone in this room resonates with. Yeah. I'll repeat it right now, but go ahead. Surprising, absolutely. Lots of surprising. Many times leadership is local. So I would hear about individuals that I didn't fully appreciate. And I heard names like Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi. Just all kinds of names. You go, okay, those individuals they were earlier in their chapters. We didn't know about them till later, but they were having profound impacts. And so what I really love, though, is when I stepped back and I really thought about it, the one thing that they all shared in common, they weren't the strongest, the biggest, the baddest, the meanest, the toughest. They were all representing what Gandhi also said, which is if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in service to others. They're servant leaders, and that's what Bill did. So no matter what name I heard, they all had the same thing, and I thought, well, Mr. Rogers epitomized that, so I thought I'd share him as an example. Thank you for the question. Yes?
I'm using my... trouble of getting a job or trying to survive in today's economy, and you had some comments on that in the beginning of your speech. And I was wondering, what do you think is maybe the best advice to maybe give the younger generation in terms of surviving in today's economy, trying to excel in today's economy to the point where they're not thinking, oh, I have to buy groceries, but, planning their next vacation, being able to, enjoy the things that we as a country try to say that's the American dream. As you come out of college, you can get your bachelor's degree, live a comfortable life, but in terms of graduating, now you're looking at, oh, I have to get 3 to 5 years of experience for an entry-level job that maybe I don't have, and now I have to settle for something that may not be able to pay the bills.
Yeah. It's a great question, and I often share, because students are asking me this question all the time as well, I think it's important to realize you're going to learn from every experience you get. And so my counsel to those that are in their teens and 20s is choose the franchise over the job. Choose the problem you most want to solve in the world. I think the worst question we can ask any young person is, what do you want to be when you grow up? We ought to ask them, what problem in this world do you want to solve? Because there's lots of ways to solve a problem. Hey, I want to help people. Okay, do you want to be a police officer? Do you want to join the military? Do you want to be a doctor? You can help them figure out the how. But first, get them to fall in love with the problem. So first, find a franchise whose mission speaks to you. And when I say a franchise, it can be a company, it can be an institution. Then the second is surround yourself with people smarter than you. So you're constantly in your learning zone and you're having to ask more questions than you have answers. Be okay with not knowing the answer. And I say that to say, don't worry about the pay day one. I know this is hard. You come out with student loan debt. Some of us come from very adverse situations and we're trying to figure out how to get by. But that will play out if you find something that makes your heart beat fast. You surround yourself with people that are incredibly talented and they're willing to coach and mentor you. Everything else will unfold. And don't worry about the title. Don't worry about whether it's one of the Fortune 500 companies or it's an autonomy school. I mean, all of those things will play out over time. And that's my counsel. Be patient, but know what you want to do. Sit up. Yep. Yes.
This is an extremely personal question. Sorry.
No, it's
I
fine.
heard about some of the impacts you're doing at Marshall, just like in the community and there on Christian Radio. You talk about your faith and how that impacts you as a leader in the workplace.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm a Southern Baptist. I was raised in a Baptist church. My wife is Jewish. My daughters were raised Jewish. We're big believers that as long as we all live the example that we want, then we're all going to end up in the place we ultimately want to go. And so for me, I think it comes down to the fact that there is something greater than me, and I'm surrounded by those individuals every single day. And so my opportunity to try to serve them in a way that helps them self-actualize is my purpose in life. I have a privilege of serving my alma mater. It is a school that is a gateway university. 57% of our students this year are first in their family to go to college, just as I was. About a third of them come from families below the poverty line, but when they are given an opportunity, they go out and surprise the world. And so my opportunity is to serve those who remind me of what I had the chance to do and give them the chance to go out and show the world as well. And that's really my sort of spiritual true north. You're welcome. Thank you.
Brett?
Yeah.
Brett, I was wondering if you mentioned the three principles of leadership, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you guys identified these particular three and sort of how you distilled it down to the three.
I can, and I'll tell it through an analogy. When I was younger, my wife and I were living in Atlanta, and we had our two daughters, and one of our daughters decided at the age of 6 she wanted to play soccer. And I may have shared this in a previous year. Some of you may recognize this story, and then I'll break it into how these turns into these three principles. So we decided, okay, we're going to get her in a soccer league. We bought her the equipment. We got her a new ball. We wrote her name in magic marker. She had the pretty shin guards, all the things she wanted to do. We show up, and we find out that, hey, these kids are bending like Beckham. At 6 years old, they've been playing since they were 3. So we said, oh, we're not putting her in that league because that'll hurt her confidence. She won't get a participation trophy. You know, we were helicopter parents. So we found another league, and we said, here's a league for the late bloomers at the age of 6. So we show up, like all the parents, we're 10 minutes early. The kids are out there. They have their respective balls with the names written in magic marker and their new uniforms. The parents are trying to get to know each other, and the kids start to argue and fight. And they literally are crying because one knocked the other one down, somebody kicked their ball and smudged the magic marker, and we said, man, this is a hot mess. All of a sudden, an SUV shows up. This lady gets out. She has a bag of balls over one shoulder, and she actually has a soccer net over the other. She walks right past the parents. She sets a soccer net on the end of the field. She comes over to drop the utility bag, and every kid on the field, without anyone saying a word, looks at the net, begins to kick all of the soccer balls, whether it was theirs or not, into the net. When they were all in, they jumped up and high-fived, and they whooped like they just won the World Cup. And the first thing that hit me is the number one role of a leader's job is to be clear what success looks like, a clear vision, and get off the field. Because God put greatness in everybody. And if you tell them what success looks like, they're going to work there. So that was number one, lead with a clear vision. Then number two is throughout the rest of the season, the coach began to help develop their individual abilities, taught them how to dribble and pass, and then figured out where they were best suited on the team and put them in the right position. And that was building a high-performance culture. And then last but not least is that coach did something that Bill Campbell role modeled. He said, you do not judge, you coach. It is moment of truth coaching. It's reinforcing the positive, pulling somebody off to the side and coaching them if they have an opportunity to improve. Bill used to say, you praise in public, you coach in private. And so those three things became the blueprint for the Intuit leadership model. Lead with a clear vision, soccer net at the end of the field, build a high-performance culture where you help grow individual ability and build team capability. And then last but not least, you produce winning results by reinforcing the positive and coaching and helping course correct the negative. And all of those things led to the blueprint. And it all happened when I saw it on a soccer field with a young lady teaching a bunch of 6-year-olds how to play soccer. And it was beautiful. I hope that helps. Got time for one more, Mark, and then I'll wrap it up. All right, thanks.
My math says you were CEO at Intuit at 44 or 43, something like that. To get there is what I make up as a grind, and you had kids. For those that have kids, and for all of us really, the balance and lessons learned, can you share a few lessons learned from that of
I can. My wife's smiling.
balance?
Yeah, she's actually
Smiling or
judging
frowning?
right now instead of coaching. It's all right, though. I love her. It's my girlfriend of 33 years. I'm still crushing on her. So I shared this last night, and I think I've shared it in a previous year, but this is where Bill's wisdom always came to bear for me. It comes down to time management, work-life balance, or what Bill called work-life integration. And what he said, there's two principles that you really want to keep in mind, Brad, when you're doing this. Principle number one is there are times of war and there are times of peace. Good generals know what time it is. In times of war, you're doing 2-a-days in August, or you're getting ready for an exam at the end of the semester, and your friends are saying, no, let's go out and party. You go, no, man, I got work to do. So you actually put off the fun to get the work done. And then once you've won the championship or you got the exam passed, then you let your freak flag fly. So you know when it is war and when it is peace. But then the second thing is, even in times of war, there are times in your life, if you're a parent, if you're a son, a daughter, where you have moments made of crystal and moments made of rubber. And rubber moments in our cases, we had a daughter who always was in a dance recital, and she would have a lot of them. And Daddy would have to be on a plane flying somewhere around the globe or going to a board meeting, and I would miss a recital, and she would look at me with those little doe eyes, and she would cry, and it broke my heart. But then next week there was another dance recital, and I'd be in the audience, and she would forget that I missed that one because that was a rubber moment. But if it came to a homecoming, a prom, her wedding, I don't care if it was a board meeting or something else going around the globe. If I drop that, it shatters. It's made of crystal. So Bill said, never prioritize anything over a crystal moment. Always prioritize crystal moments over all the work. And then I said to Bill, Bill, how do I know what's crystal and what's rubber? He said, that's up to you and your wife to decide. That's why she's judging and not coaching. So it is that notion that I think we all have to keep in mind is you've got to keep your priorities clear. And what I figured out was over time, we got really good at, okay, what are the moments that matter most for me? And I look back and I wished I had more quantity, but I am happy that I was able to invest in the quality. Does that help? Thank you. I'm going to try to get us back on track. I wish I had more time for Q&A. I absolutely appreciate everything you do. You are the example in the world that I hope we see more of. God bless you. Have a great summit. Thanks.